Since you won't answer me, I'm guessing about 7 years now. No wonder you come home and want sex. You couldn't get rid of him, or maybe you wanted to have a baby with him and cover it up by sleeping with me. Please, Andy, I can't think right now. Please, let's talk later. Whose children am I raising? My or your lover's? Answer me, whose children am I raising? Please, Andy, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Recently, a couple of our longtime friends, Bob and Maria, paid us a visit. We've been acquainted with them for the majority of our married life. Maria used to work alongside my wife, Trina, at a prominent travel agency with offices spread across several states. Meanwhile, Bob holds a supervisory position at a factory, while I work as an electrician in a local factory, a job I've held for about 8 years since returning from military service. During their visit, the four of us watched an old movie titled Same Time, Next Year, depicting a long-term extramarital affair between a man and a woman who rendezvous annually for a week while maintaining their respective family lives. The emotional conclusion moved our wives to tears, but I couldn't help but express my disdain for the characters' infidelity. It's absurd, I remarked. They're betraying their families, and yet you both find it heartbreaking. They shared a genuine love and only met once a year, Maria defended. In response, I retorted, so, according to you two, I could have an affair with my ex-girlfriend once a year as long as Trina remains oblivious. Andy's words caused a tense moment among the group, highlighting differing perspectives on fidelity and commitment. Trina was furious. You bastard! This isn't about you and your old Melissa. This is about people who are really in love. I doubt you'll ever be able to understand that. Bob could see the tension was getting out of control. Time out. It's just a damn movie. I don't think we should all sit here and argue over a stupid movie. Bob, I asked, if this woman was your wife, would you say it's okay to have an affair once a year? If I caught Trina doing that, I'd throw her out on her ass. And Trina, you had no right to bring Melissa into this just because she was my girlfriend before I met you. Hell, I didn't say anything about you and your old lover Zack. Look, this is getting out of hand. Let's just stop talking about the movie, Maria said. No, I said. I want to know Bob's answer. What would you do, Bob, if Maria wanted to do what the woman in the movie did? Look, Andy, Maria wouldn't do that. I'm not going to answer questions based on some damn assumptions. Maria is too good a person to do that to our marriage, Bob replied. I glanced casually at the girls, and for a moment, something flashed between them. I couldn't tell what it was, but a chill ran down my spine. Maria got up, sat on her husband's lap, and kissed him. I guess in their happy heads, all was well and fine. As for Trina, she didn't smile at me, she stood up and offered everyone another drink. I turned off the movie, and the four of us went into the kitchen to play cards. Men have always been against women. I have to admit that the cold made me think. In the days that followed, I did a lot of thinking. When I graduated from high school, I enlisted in the Army. I signed up for 3 years, 2 of them overseas. I went to prom with my girlfriend, Melissa. I really believed I loved her. She was my first love and the first woman I ever made love to. I always thought we were a great couple and would be together forever. I guess I was just too naive at the time. The last time we made love was a week before I had to leave for duty. She never saw me off because she had to go to another ball. Her parents told her that she could go to the prom with me as long as she went to another prom, or rather a dance, with Eric. He was the kind of guy who liked weirdos and was in college. There was some kind of celebration going on, and Eric asked Melissa to go to it with him. Melissa made the mistake of mentioning it to her mother. Don't get me wrong, I had nothing against Eric except that he wanted to date my girlfriend. Unfortunately, his mother and Melissa's mother worked together and tried to get them both to start dating. It pained me to know that Melissa would date Eric, but she said her mom told her she had to go. But she promised me she wouldn't even kiss him. I had been abroad for about 4 months when I received a letter from my sister informing me that Melissa was pregnant. I couldn't believe it. Melissa had been writing to me since I left for basic training. Why had she never told me about it? Surely she must have known, especially if my sister Jen knew. The only answer was that Eric had gotten her pregnant. I was furious. I wrote her a letter calling her every dirty word I could think of. I was fighting in a war, and my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend was having fun at home behind my back and didn't even deign to tell me she was pregnant. After that letter, I never wrote to her again. I told her not to waste her time writing to me because it was over between us, and I would throw her letters in the trash without even reading them. I told her that I hoped she, her illegitimate child, and Eric would have a good life together. I received a letter from her but tore it up and threw it in the trash. I never heard from her again. While I was overseas, my sister told me that Mel and Eric had gotten married shortly before the baby was born. They lived in Eric's parents' house, and Eric was taking night classes at college to get a college degree. When I found out I was pregnant, I became a hero. I wasn't brave, I was stupid. I didn't care if I got killed or not. I was there as a superhero, saving the lives of many homeless children running around. I didn't care about myself anymore. I thought I was going to come home in a body bag. I didn't care, I was just a stupid soldier who decided his life was over. I couldn't believe it when my tour of duty was over. Not only was I alive, but I received several commendations for bravery. When I returned home, the town threw a party in my honor. I saw many friends and old schoolmates. They all greeted me with handshakes and smiles. I wondered if one woman would show up at the celebration. I saw her in the crowd with a baby stroller and her husband. She turned around and walked away without even talking to me. I wasn't expecting this because of the letter I wrote, calling her A&A. It's funny how our emotions take over when we get angry. I was sad after meeting her, but I still hated what she did to us. There was a lot of dancing at the party. I saw an old classmate sitting there and asked her to dance. It was Trina, one of the prettiest girls in our class. She was a little out of my league at the time and was dating an athlete from high school. He was every woman's dream, at least that's what the school rumors said. His name was Zack Carter. He was the quarterback of the entire school and was probably excelling. I heard he went off to college. After high school, Trina went to a local junior college, earned a business degree, and worked for a large travel agency. Last I heard, Zack was living in another state. I guess he broke up with Trina, dated some woman who had money, and married her. As we danced, we both talked about old times. We soon realized that we had both been dumped by previous lovers, and after getting along quite well, we started dating. I must say that we were both on the upswing in our love lives. After living together for 6 months, we got married. I know it was stupid, but when things are blamed on people, they tend to behave differently. I got a job at one of the local factories and went to apprentice as an electrician. Trina and I actually got along quite well. I think we found that we respected each other and enjoyed many of the same things. I could tell we loved each other, and in a way, we did. The sex we had was great. She wasn't afraid to try almost anything. It bothered me a little where she learned many of these things. One day I asked her, and she laughed and pulled out a stack of women's magazines that listed many of the things we had tried. Our real feelings were more like love, but it was a better relationship than many people we knew. Life was pleasant, and we went out with all kinds of friends. One day when we were walking with Bob and Maria, Trina asked me if I wanted to go to a conference that her travel agency was organizing. Andy, every 2 years our travel agency holds a convention in a different state where we have offices. Last time it was here in Ohio, and this time it was in Florida. It's usually the first or second week of May. They let us bring our spouses with us, even though it's nothing more than a meeting, and they show us the latest tourist destinations and things like that. "Would you like to go?" asked Trina. "Honey, I don't want to use a week's vacation in May to go to meetings. Can any of the other employees in your office go with you?" I replied. "I'll go," Maria said. "Bob can't go, and he won't want to. Usually, Trina, Barb, another girl from the office, and I go together." "Sounds good to me." It'll give me a week to get excited for you until you get back, I replied. Trina smiled, and she and Maria went to the women's restroom. I never understood why women couldn't go to the restroom alone. When they left, Bob and I were talking about how lucky we were not to have to go to such a boring seminar. When Trina came back from the seminar, we made love, had sex, call it what you will. It was some of the best sex we'd had since we'd gotten married. Anyway, Trina got pregnant. I was a happy father. My baby girl was born just in time for Valentine's Day. I couldn't have imagined a better Valentine's Day gift. We were a family now, and everything seemed to have changed for the better. After the baby was born, Trina took 3 months off. My sister Jen offered to babysit, and everything worked out just fine. Baby Renee was my pride and joy. After work, I loved nothing more than cuddling my baby girl and watching her play. The only thing that disturbed my little world was Trina and I fighting. For some reason, she was always throwing Melissa at me. Of course, I threw Zack back at her. It was really stupid to fight over two people who were no longer a part of our lives, but when we're angry, we have a tendency to bring up the past. One day when I got home before Trina did, I asked Jen if she had ever seen Melissa. Every now and then, I see her at the grocery store. She has the cutest little girl, she named Andrea. I know you don't want me to talk about her, but she loves her daughter, even though she doesn't seem happy. I don't know why, Jen said. Well, next time you see her, tell her I have a daughter too. That's rude, Andy. I'm not saying anything like that, Trina said, walking in a few minutes later. We realized we'd better change the subject. For some reason, I couldn't just forget about Melissa. Maybe because deep down, I still cared for her, maybe because she was my first love. I wonder if other people have similar feelings about their first love. Do we ever relive them? Was Trina able to get over Zack? When it comes to first love, there's always something to think about. Time flew by, and it was time for Trina to leave for another seminar. I really didn't want to go, and neither did Bob. Besides, I had a little 2-year-old daughter to take care of. At least that's how I explained it to Trina. She and Maria went out with her other girlfriend. When she got home, we had great sex again. I thought about telling her to go out more often. Every time she came home, the sex was always the best. About 2 months later, she found out she was pregnant. 7 months later, our second daughter was born. We named her Ashley. Valentine's Day was starting to become a pretty good day in our house. Life went on, we lived ordinary lives and fought. The funny thing is, the longer we were married, the less we had in common. I often wondered if we would have divorced if it weren't for my 2 sweet daughters, Renee and Ashley. I finally got my electrician's license. It meant more time to work, but also more money. I used to spend my free time with the girls. I realized that soon they would grow up, and I wanted to spend as much time with them as possible. Trina and I got along, but it wasn't like love. I know I keep saying this, but I felt like we were just doing our chores. It seemed like most of my friends had similar marriages. We all looked alike from the outside, but behind closed doors, we were like 2 strangers living in the same house. I tried to joke and banter with Trina a few times, but it usually ended in some sort of argument. When she was planning her next workshop, I told her I would go with her. I thought it would strengthen our marriage if I took more interest in her work. At first, she seemed excited that I was going, but after a couple of days, she calmed down a bit. A few days after that, Bob called me and asked if I wanted to go to Canada and fish with him while the girls were at the seminar. I tried to explain to him that I had told Trina that I would go with her. Believe me, Bob, I'd rather fish than go to a travel seminar. Just tell Trina, I'm sure she'll understand. I've already got the cabin booked, or I changed the date. I go fishing every time Maria goes to a seminar this year. One of the guys couldn't make it, and we had a vacancy. Maria was the one who suggested I contact you. Please, at least mention it to Trina, Bob replied. I was sitting on the floor playing with the girls when Trina came home. The first thing she did was talk about the fishing trip. I think Maria had mentioned it, Andy, she said. I know about the fishing trip to Canada. I think you should go, really, Trina. I promised you I'd go to the seminar with you. Look, Andy, this is the first vacation you've had since you finished your course and became an electrician. You've earned it, and I'm not going to take it away from you and make you sit through a bunch of meetings. Call Bob and tell him to make room for you in the car, she smiled at me. I couldn't believe how sweet she was. I told her I would get back to our usual sexcapade when she got back from her trip. I quickly got up and called Bob. Trina screwed me that night too. Maybe she's changed. The fishing was great, it was just what I needed to get away and relax. For the best part of the week, my sister watched the kids while we were both away. I asked her to keep them an extra night so Trina and I could indulge in some sexual pleasure. Jen just laughed and said she would see me the next day. I had Trina lying on the bed, and we were making love to her. Well, more like rough sex, minutes after she walked in the door. I remember telling her that we were going to try to conceive a boy that night. I don't remember how many times we did it that night, but it led to our third pregnancy. Andrew Jr. was born the following February. All three of our children were born within 1 day of each other in February. Right after Andy Jr. was born, I had a vasectomy. I decided we had 2 daughters and a son and told Trina that 3 kids were enough and I wasn't going to use condoms. She didn't seem happy or upset. Of course, why would she be happy? Surely she thought 3 kids were enough too. About a year after Andy was born, Jen told me that Melissa wanted to talk to me privately. What about, Jen? What could she possibly want after all these years? I don't know. She filed for divorce from Eric, but I don't know if that's it or not. She seems scared. I think she needs to talk to you. You realize Trina will get really mad if I talk to Melissa. She's never really liked her. I probably elevated her too much years ago. I know I'd be pissed if I found Trina talking to Zack. Hell, I don't even know where he lives. Look, Andy, the last thing I want to do is interfere with your marriage. Maybe you can call her from my house, or even meet her there. Once, we don't talk about sex, just talk. I've always liked her, and I know she wouldn't ask you to talk unless it was really important. The next day, I went to Melissa's house at Jen's house. I felt like I was doing something wrong just by going there. One part of me kept telling me to go home, and the other part of me wanted to see Mel again. Now I was struggling with my thoughts on whether I was doing the right thing. I stopped in front of Jen's house and sat there for a minute, trying to gather my thoughts and wondering what I should say. I felt like a nervous child as I got out of the car and walked to the door. I rang the doorbell. Any other time, I would have walked right in, but today was different. Jen came to the door and asked why I rang the doorbell. I didn't have an answer. When I walked in, the tension could have been cut with a knife. When I looked up and saw Melissa, as beautiful as I remembered her, standing in Jen's kitchen, she cried and brought her hands to her face. I was at a loss as to what to do. There was no way. I expected to see her crying. I walked over to her and held her hands, seeing the tears streaming down her face. She spoke first. "I'm so sorry, Andy." "I'm so sorry," she said over and over. She was shaking, and I put my arms around her to comfort her. I had no idea why she was acting like this, but it was getting to me. 10 years ago, I would have been happy to see her tears after what she'd done to me, but it was different now. Perhaps time helps heal old wounds. I held her in my arms and smelled the Melissa I remembered. "It's okay, Mel. That was 10 years ago. We're both moving on with our lives," I said. "No, you don't understand. I promised Eric that I would never see you again. That was our pact. But I had to break it. I had to break it for Andrea, my little girl," Mel replied. "You're right, Mel. I don't understand. What are you trying to tell me?" Mel calmed down a little, and Jen brought her a cup of tea. The 3 of us were sitting at the table when Jen suggested we go into the other room and leave Mel and me alone. "No, please, Please stay, Jen. I think you need to hear this too. Andrea, my little girl, has a severe case of jaundice due to liver failure. She's going to have a liver transplant if a suitable donor can be found. The doctor said that family members are best, and that only part of the liver needs to be given to adults. In time, it will grow back. My problem is that I am not a match, and we have no other suitable family members. What about Eric? Jen asked. Has he been tested? What about his family members? Mel looked at me and said, Eric is not Andrea's father. It's you, Andy. She started crying again. I was overwhelmed. I had so many questions, and I didn't know where to start. What? I asked. Why didn't you ever tell me? She was my baby. My God, Mel, I can't believe you could hide something like that. When you found out I was pregnant, you didn't give me a chance to explain. You texted me and called me names, among other things. You told me you didn't want to see me anymore. I wrote you a letter explaining everything, but you never wrote me back. Oh my God, I was furious when I got that letter and threw it away. I can't believe I was so stupid. I've been mad at you all these years. Why did you marry Eric? Does he know Andrea might not be his child? Mel smiled slightly. You're so crazy. That's one of the things I've always liked about you. Of course, Eric knew Andrea wasn't his child. We never had sex until we were married. I told him you were the father, and you wanted nothing more to do with me. That's what you told me. Eric really cared about me. He really is a wonderful man. But he also has pride. He agreed to marry me on the condition that I tell everyone that he is the father of my child. Honestly, I didn't know what else to do. You didn't want anything more to do with me, and I was an 18-year-old girl. Eric and I got married, but I had to promise to never see you again and let everyone know that Eric was Andrea's father. I still love you, and Eric knew that. He's a good man, and we got along fine until Andrea was diagnosed with liver problems a couple of months ago. You're her last hope. I had to choose whether or not to tell you. Of course, Eric said that if I told you Andrea was your child, we couldn't stay married anymore because his family and friends would find out the truth. But I had no choice. My child's life is at stake, and she comes first in my life. Will you take the test to see if you can be a donor? Tears of hope stood in her eyes. This was no small decision. My marriage was probably on the line too. I don't know how Trina will react. I'm giving part of my liver to Mel's baby. I knew I had to do the right thing, no matter the circumstances or the outcome. Mel, of course I'll take the test to save Andrea's life. Tell the doctor to make an appointment for me, and I'll be there. All three of us had tears in our eyes. Mel came over to me and hugged me. She whispered in my ear, I love you so much, always have and always will. Mel immediately picked up the phone and called the hospital to schedule my checkup. I was scheduled for Monday. I figured that would give me a day or so to break the news to Trina. I guess I really was between a hammer and anvil. I believed Mel when she told me Andrea was my daughter. When I took the test, I would know for sure. And she would gain nothing and lose a lot by lying to me. I hugged Jen and Mel and headed home, very confused. Learning that Andrea was my daughter threw me into a state of confusion. I had a child who was 10 years old, and I had never even met her. The woman I'd always loved was back in my life. I had a wife who despised my ex-girlfriend, and I had 3 other children at home. If I hadn't been so young, I probably would have had a heart attack. I was playing with the kids when Trina came home. It was hard to tell what mood she was in because it changed so often. I decided to wait a little while before talking to her. I knew she was about to burst into tears, and I didn't want the kids to see it happen. They had already seen their mother and me fighting too often on Sunday. I took the kids to my mom's house. I told Trina I'd be back in a few minutes, that I had something to discuss with her. When I got back, she jumped on me. What's so damn important we can't discuss in front of the kids? Trina asked. I talked to Melissa yesterday, and you and I have a lot to discuss, I began, but Trina interrupted me. What? You went and saw her? Why? She's missing her home and she wanted you to help her. That's enough, Trina. This is very serious, and I need to talk to you about it. Mel's daughter has jaundice, and she needs a liver transplant or she's going to die. What does this have to do with us? I feel sorry for the girl, but there's nothing we can do. Why would she want to tell you about this? Trina looked a little more concerned, but I knew she was wondering why Mel had called me. Mel said the girl needs part of an adult's liver to survive, and the closest chances of a match are with family members. Don't tell me she claims you're the baby's father. Do you believe her? Yeah, she called to tell me I'm the father of a little girl. Honestly, Trina, I didn't realize. The little girl needs a transplant, and I'm going to see if I can help her. I have an appointment tomorrow to see if I'm a good fit. What about our family? Have you thought about them? What if something goes wrong, or that you need time to recover? Have you thought about us? Trina looked more angry than concerned. She had a right to be angry. It was just dumped on us. But the fact remained that Andrea needed help to survive. Look, the realization that I can save a little girl's life and the fact that she could very well be my daughter leaves me no choice. I have to do it, no matter what you say. You bastard. You put your girlfriend and her daughter before your own family. You are a poor excuse for a man and a father. I'm going to pretend you said that out of anger. If our children needed a transplant, I would support them, and you know it. Tomorrow, I'll know from the test results if Mel's girl is my daughter, and if she is, I'll do everything I can to save her. I will also be involved in her life, whether you like it or not. I just hope you can stop your hate and try to understand. For your information, Andrew, I'm against it. You may love her, but she's not related to me, and I don't care what happens to her. I have children of my own to worry about, and if she survives, I don't want you bringing her into my house. You're just nasty. I can't believe what I saw in you. Go to your old girlfriend and give your liver to her daughter. Maybe she'll take you back after I kick your ass out. I'll be watching you and collecting evidence. You better watch your step. I picked up the kids and took them home. Trina came later and hardly spoke to me. I knew that life was going to be hell from here on out. I was checked in and asked to wait an hour while they ran tests. I went into Andrea's room. Mel was sitting there, talking to her little girl. Andrea was so pretty, she looked a lot like her mother. She was 10 years old, but she was small because of liver problems. She looked no older than my daughter Renee, who was 6 years old. I walked over to the bed, and it startled Mel a little. She quickly turned around and saw me. She had the most beautiful smile on her face. "Thank you for coming," she said. I looked at Andrea. "Are you my guardian angel?" she asked me. Mom said my guardian angel would be here today to help me get what I need. Are you him? I smiled at her. I'm not exactly an angel, but I'm here in hopes that I can give you what you need. I'll know in a few minutes. You're Andy, aren't you? Mom said I was named after you. Did you know that? I have to tell you, Mom and I talk all the time. She and I have secrets. When I get better, I'll share them with you. Mom said it's okay. This disease may make me look young, but I'm 10 now, and I'm pretty smart. Do you have other children? The way she said it made me wonder. Did she know the truth about me? She was talking about the other kids, wasn't she? She sounded like she was. So smart, but her body looked so fragile. God, I hope I'm perfect for her. Yes, honey, I have 3 children at home, all younger than you. When you get well, I'll bring them to you. That would be great. I like kids. I don't have any brothers or sisters to play with, so maybe I could borrow yours, she smiled. I could see it was weak, and there were tubes coming out of it. Honey, close your eyes and rest for a while. You need to get your strength back. I'll keep Andy company, Mel said. I'm sure you will, Mommy, Andrea said, smiled, and dozed off. Does she really know who I am, Mel? How much does she really know? I asked. Mel smiled. That was so nice to see. Andrea and I have secrets, just like she told you. She'll tell you what they are when she's feeling better. Until then, you'll just have to guess. Mel walked me back to the lab. We were asked to wait in the doctor's office. He wanted to talk to us. Mr. Connor, you're a great match for Andrea. The perfect match would be a child, but we can take some of your liver and implant it in the girl, the doctor said. She's my daughter. I know that now. I would like you to call her my daughter, I said. The doctor smiled. Well, Mr. Connors, your daughter has a chance for a full recovery. It may take a couple of months for her body to fully accept the implant, but she's young and should recover quickly. What about me, Doc? What am I going to go through? I asked. You will be put under anesthesia while we remove part of your liver. When you wake up, you will feel like you have just been run over by a truck. If all goes well, you'll need bed rest for a month, and you won't be able to return to work for at least 6 weeks. Over the next year, your body will recover on its own, the doctor explained. You're not kidding, are you, Doc? I asked. No, you wanted to know the truth, and I believe I will tell it to you. Your daughter is very lucky to have you in her life. Frankly, I don't think she could have lived another month. Now for the bad news, I said. Bad news? You mean you just told me good news? The doctor laughed. Yes, that was the good news. The bad news is that we need to operate as soon as possible. I was hoping you could come in tomorrow morning for surgery, the doctor said. Tomorrow, Doc? Let's start on Wednesday. Tomorrow, I will need to come into work and take sick leave. I need you to provide me with all the necessary paperwork, especially if I'm going to be away from work for a while, I requested. Agreed. Wednesday, I'll have my secretary give you the necessary paperwork. See you Wednesday, Mr. Connors. Just call me Andy, the doctor said. Doc, looks like we'll be seeing a lot of each other, I remarked. Mel clung to my hand as we walked back to Andrea's room. There were tears in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. I don't know what to say, Andy. You're putting your life on hold for a few months for my daughter. I'm doing this for my daughter too. I can't live with myself if I don't help her. As for you and me, Mel, I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm married, and I would never cheat on my wife. I've always loved you too, but we each have our own lives now. No matter what happens, I want to stay friends with you, and I want Andrea to be a part of my life, I said as I leaned over the bed and kissed little Andrea's forehead. Sleep well, my beautiful daughter. Daddy loves you. Tears came to my eyes as I left the hospital. After I was discharged, I went into work to tell my boss what had happened. He said he was surprised. He didn't know any of my children had been sick. I didn't bother trying to explain it to him, but thanked him for helping me get my paperwork and insurance in order. He said my job would be right next to me when the doctor cleared me to come back. When I got home, Trina was waiting for me. So this is your baby? She asked. Yes, Andrea is my daughter. The surgery is on Wednesday. I've already taken care of the insurance and talked to work. I won't work for at least 6 weeks, but I'll be paid sick leave. So you're really going to go through with this? What about your kids? Are you going to tell them about your second child? She inquired. Our children are 2, 4, and 6 years old. If I told them I could save another child's life, they would be smart enough to tell me I was doing the right thing. They know I'll always be there for them. I'll talk to them tonight so they know why they won't see me for a while. Jen said she will help you in any way she can until I get home. Oh yes, your wonderful sister Jen will be there. You know she can be a pain in the sometimes, she remarked. Don't say that. Don't be so stupid as to speak ill of my sister. She's like a second mother to our kids, and you know it. If you don't need her help, just call her and tell her what a pain in your ass she is. I'm sure she'll leave you alone, I said firmly. Trina fell silent and went into the other room. I called the two girls over to talk to them. Andy Jr. came in too, but he had no idea what we were talking about. I told the kids that they had an older sister from another mother and that she was very sick. I tried my best to explain to them what was going on. The girls were almost crying. Save her, Daddy. You have to help her if you can, Renee replied. I will, sweetheart. I won't be home for a few days until I feel better. I'll call you and talk to you every day until I get home when your sister is better. I'll take you to see her, and Jen will help take care of you while I'm gone. I want you to be good for her and Mommy, okay? We'll be good, Daddy, we promise. On Wednesday, I went to the hospital. Before going into the room, I looked in on Andrea for a moment. She was nervous but smiling. Hey, Andy, glad you could make it. I couldn't have done it without you. I think she had a little bit of me in her. She was a sweet, caring girl. I'd only known her for a couple of days, but I was so proud of her. I turned around, and Mel was standing there, shaking nervously. It's going to be okay, Mel. Andrea's ready, and so am I. She leaned forward and kissed me. I mean a real love kiss. Thank you, Andy. I'll never forget what you do for our daughter. I looked back at Andrea and realized that she had heard what her mom had just said. She just smiled at me as if to say, "Thank you, Daddy." I went to my room and began to prepare for surgery. When I woke up after the surgery, I remembered the doctor telling me how I would feel. He wasn't lying. I felt terrible. A nurse came in, smiled at me, and ran her little tests. I told her how I felt, and she increased the dose of painkiller. I looked around the room, but no one was there. I knew Mel would be with her daughter, but I hoped Trina would change her mind and come to me. I was asleep, and when I woke up, I heard voices. It was my sister, Jen, and Mel. Hey, little brother, how are you feeling? You look like... She laughed. We always teased each other. She was as good a sister as one could ever have. She was married, but she didn't have kids. I don't know why, we just didn't talk about it. Jen, please don't make me laugh, it hurts like hell. How did it go? Is Andrea going to be okay? He says it's too early to tell, but the doctor is very optimistic. He said the surgery went well, and now all we have to do is pray that her body will accept the liver. He'll take my liver. I don't give my body parts to just anyone. I started laughing. Oh, that hurts. I can't even laugh without it hurting. Andy, I am forever indebted to you for what you did. You saved my daughter's life, our daughter's life. She is still my daughter even though we are not married. I will look forward to seeing her regularly. My children can't wait to meet their big sister. What about Trina? You know, I tried to talk to her a few times, but she always walked away from me. I just wanted to be friends, but she'd say, no way. I wish we could all be friends, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. I really hope Andrea gets closer to your other children. Trina never told me she was talking to you, never. As for Andrea, I'm bringing my children to see her. They told me they can't wait to see her and also asked that she get better. I promised them I would do that. The three of us talked for a while, after which the doctor came in to see me. Jen and Mel said they would meet me later. I talked to the doctor, and he informed me about the state of my health and Andrea's. Even though I felt lousy, I called home to talk to the kids. Trina answered the phone and asked how I was doing. Okay, I guess. I was just calling to say hi to the kids. I really didn't want to talk much right now, especially to Trina. Well, I'll probably stop by tomorrow after work. I've been too busy today to get out. Trina remarked. She handed the phone to the kids, and they each started talking on the inside phone. I told them I would talk to them the next day, but I just wanted to let them know that I was okay and I missed them. How's the girl, Daddy? Is she better? Renee asked. As far as I know, she's feeling better. I need to rest, girls, so give Andy a kiss for me, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. I love and miss you all very much. We love you too, Daddy. Bye. Trina came to see me the next day. She asked how I was feeling and how Andrea was doing. She didn't really seem concerned. She seemed to be asking me more because she thought she should. She spent most of her time telling me about a special meeting in Chicago that she might have to attend. It was a month or so away, so by then, I would be out of the hospital and able to watch the kids. She said that my sister Jen was with our kids right now, so she could come and visit me. Her visit made me wonder if she wanted to stay married to me. I had nothing to refer to, but I sensed she was hiding something, not that I had a sixth sense, just a feeling. She kissed me lightly on the lips and told me she'd be back in a couple of days, then got up and left. After a while, Mel came in to see me, and it was as if the aura in the room had changed. I realized that I had married the wrong woman, but it was too late. I made my bed, and now I'm going to do everything I can to make my marriage work out for the sake of my children. There was nothing I wouldn't do for them, including living in a loveless marriage. I did call my kids every night and talk to them as promised. It was so nice to hear them argue about who should talk to me. Even little Andy got his turn on the phone. At least his first words were Dada. The next few days passed without much happening. Trina stopped by, and so did my sister Jen. Of course, Mel stopped by all the time. She pretty much lived in the hospital between seeing Andrea and me. I knew I would miss her when I got out of the hospital, but I had to try to fix my marriage. A few more days went by, and I had a few visitors from work, and of course, my mom. She said she was there for me when they took me out of the ICU, but I came out like a light. Mom was there for me every day after the surgery. She never talked about it, just visited Andrea and told me I had done everything right. I could tell by the look on her face that she too accepted Andrea as her granddaughter. She didn't need to tell me that. That's how grandmothers talk about their grandchildren. I asked Mel about Erica and her impending divorce. He's moving to California, you know. He's always been kind of a geek, but a good geek. He's a wonderful person, and I'm going to miss him. We agreed to stay friends. He really likes computers and said he found a job in Silicon Valley. He'll make a good husband for the right woman someday. It's just not me. What exactly do you do for a living, Mel? How are you going to survive? I inquired. Like I said, Eric is a computer wizard. He installed my computer for me. I run a home-based business doing billing for several medical facilities. I set my own work schedule, just as long as the work gets done on time. Eric and I made an agreement where he leaves me the house and furnishings. Of course, I'll still pay. We each have our own car, so that's not a problem. We'll split our savings after the credit cards are paid off. There will be no support. It wouldn't be right for him to pay for someone else's child if we're not married, she explained, her eyes watering. It was out of respect for Eric. Later that evening, Eric came to visit me. I was completely surprised. I didn't know what to say. I hope he doesn't want to fight because in that case, he would definitely win, I thought to myself. Andy, I just came by to say thank you, he began. Thank you? I don't understand, I replied. You saved Andrea's life. You will realize she is the sweetest girl, and I will miss her. I'm leaving for California tomorrow. I just talked to the doctors, and Andrea's body seems to have accepted your liver. She's starting to get her color back. Eric, maybe you and Mel can work things out. I know she respects you, Andy, I suggested. Let's not kid each other. If she loved me as much as she loves you, I would have happily stayed after her. I played second fiddle for almost 10 years, hoping she'd leave you, but she never did and probably never will. We had a good marriage, but I want my wife to love me, not just respect me. Can you understand that? We don't fight, and we do everything together, but her heart belongs to you. I can't live like this anymore, especially since everyone will know Andrea is not my daughter by blood. So, take care of my family, don't worry about me. Computers are my first love, and I'll be in Silicon Valley. Thanks again, old boy, for giving Andrea another chance at life. You're a really good person, Eric. I'm so sorry, I really don't know what to say. What about Andrea? I know she's going to miss you. You're the only father she's ever known. I have to say that our relationship with Mel was based on respect. We decided from the beginning that my name would not be on the birth certificate. Under my father's name, she put your name and said you were overseas, so your signature was not needed. I know Mel and Andrea have been communicating, and they have their secrets. I think she knows about you and Mel. I'm sure she will miss me as much as I miss her. That's why she needs you in her life. She needs a father figure in her life. Why shouldn't he be her real father? Thank you again, and take care of them. They will need you both. Before I could say anything, Eric turned and walked out the door. I lay there thinking about how complicated my life had become. At home, I had a wife, a good marriage, and 3 wonderful children. On the other side was an ex-girlfriend and a daughter I had just donated a kidney to. God, not the best situation I was in. Soon, I was able to go home. I was not allowed to lift anything over 5 pounds. My girls understood, but Andy didn't know any better and wanted to be held in my arms. At least he was content to climb in next to me and sit on the bed or couch. My girls were like 2 little mommies, waiting at my heels. Trina left for work every day, and when she came home, we were pleasant to each other. Jen stopped by every day for a couple of hours to see if I needed anything. She was very helpful to me. I also talked to my mom every day to keep her updated on my condition. She took my 3 kids every couple of days so I could get some rest. I was recovering well, but I didn't want to overwork myself. The first week I was home, I didn't call Mel directly. Jen would stop by the hospital or call Mel to see how Andrea was doing. She was going to be in the hospital for another week. The doctor was surprised at how well she was doing. Her skin color was back, and she was gaining weight. He was very optimistic about her condition. After Andrea was sent home to recuperate, my girls wanted to meet her. I still wasn't allowed to drive, so we all got in the van, and Jen drove us to Mel's. I wasn't sure about driving there, but with Jen and the kids, I figured it shouldn't be a problem. Mel's house was beautiful. It was well furnished and clean. I told the children that Andrea was a sick girl, so they should be quiet. Mel smiled when she saw my children. She introduced herself and said they could call her Mel. She led the 2 girls into Andrea's bedroom and introduced a smiling Andrea to them. I was surprised when I saw her. She no longer had jaundice, a yellowish color caused by liver problems, but had a beautiful clear complexion. "Hi," Andrea said. "I'm your big sister. Well, big sister anyway." She smiled as she saw that Renee was almost as tall as herself. "Don't I have a little brother?" "Where is he?" Andrea asked. Jen walked into the room holding little Andy in her arms. "You were looking for this little guy," Jen replied. I couldn't believe what Andrea said next. I know I'll never forget it, the things that come out of kids' mouths. "Hi, my sweet brother from the other mom. I'm your big sister, Andrea." Andy smiled. Jen sat him on the bed, and he crawled over and sat next to his new big sister. Tears came to my eyes. I couldn't help it, but I wasn't alone when I looked over and saw Mel and Jen smiling too. I now knew that Andrea had been informed that I was her birth father. We spent the next couple of hours with the kids, letting them enjoy each other's company. The kids were upset when we told them that we had to leave and that Andrea needed a rest. The girls said they wouldn't leave unless I promised them they could come back again. Of course, I told them that they would see each other often. As we were leaving, I realized that I was going to have to pay for it that night when I told Trina we were going to Mel's. No sooner had Trina walked through the door than the girls informed her that they had met their big sister today. At least Trina had the good sense not to start yelling at me. Before the kids went to bed, they called me every name they could think of. I tried to explain that nothing had happened and Jen was there with me. Of course, Trina accused me of Jen lying for me and to cover up the affair. "My God, Trina, why can't you believe we can just be friends? I've never cheated on you, and I never will. My family is too important to me to have an affair, and then you accuse me of Jen lying for me? Trust me, Jen would never tolerate infidelity, not even from her brother. I told you, the kids wanted to get to know each other and had a good time. Why are you looking so glum? Not everyone wants to cheat on their spouse. I promise you I won't, she yelled some more, and we went to bed. We still slept together, and I tried to lie next to Trina, but she wouldn't do it. Over time, everything healed pretty well. The doctor told me to wait another month before returning to work. I called the plant and let them know about it. Trina reminded me about her trip to Chicago in a couple of weeks. She would be gone for a whole week. I figured I wouldn't have a problem with the babysitter now. I could pick Andy up, and he was happy. The next week, our friends Bob and Maria came over to watch a movie and play cards. The girls chose the movie's same time next year, thus we bring you up to speed from the very beginning of this story. As I mentioned at the very beginning, something happened between Maria and Mel. I kept thinking about the way they were looking at each other. I saw Trina whisper something to Maria before she and Bob left. I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't sure what. Things hadn't been good between us since the surgery. We hadn't made love in a long time. I decided to give it a try. At first, she pushed my hand away, but I kept trying. Are you ready? She asked. You're going away for a week, and I don't want to wait for you to come back. Yes, I replied, and finally, we had sex. I often wonder why her lovemaking doesn't carry over into our daily lives. Only during sex does she seem loving. The next morning, she went to work, and I cleaned up the house, something I didn't often help with. There were folded clothes on the dresser, and as I was putting them away in a drawer, I noticed a package of birth control pills. When she started taking them, I had a vasectomy over a year ago. I pulled them out and put them on the dresser. I opened them to see if she had taken them. I knew I would be asking her about it tonight. God, I hope she has a good reason to use birth control. Our marriage was already on the rocks. I looked around for anything else that might be amusing, but found nothing. We both didn't use the computer much at home, and we had the same email address. There was nothing unusual about that. I checked a few of our phone bills, but they were fine. Maybe I was getting paranoid. When Trina got home that evening, I asked her about birth control pills. Why did you go through my drawers? You had no right, really. I live here just like you do. I didn't peek after great sex last night. I decided to help clean up the house and was just putting your clothes away when I noticed the pills. Are you going to explain to me why you're taking them, knowing I had a vasectomy? You bastard. You say you trust me, and then you give me the third degree. I'll tell you why I have to take the pill. A few months ago, I was having problems with my period, and I went to the doctor. She advised me to take the pill to control the timing of my periods and make them more regular. Why didn't you tell me you were having problems? With a woman, what would you have done? Would you have prescribed me pills or told me to go to the doctor like I did? Besides, you were too worried about your other family members at the time. I didn't want to bother you with my health problems. This is inappropriate, Trina. You're my wife, and you mean a lot to me. I'm sorry for doubting you, but I got worried when I saw the pills. I was afraid. I was afraid you might be having an affair. I'm sorry, okay? Now you know why I take the pills, not because I want to, but because my doctor told me to. After talking to her, I felt better. I admit I still had my doubts, but I wanted to believe her. Thursday night, we had sex again. It was almost an instant replay of that day. Friday morning, she was in a great mood. She kissed the kids and me goodbye before leaving for Chicago. I asked her to come back soon so we could continue what we had started. On Saturday, I took the kids to visit Mel and Andrea. We spent the whole day together like one big happy family. I wish my life with Trina was the same, instead of fighting all the time. There were some feelings between Mel and me, but we both knew it was best not to go with our feelings. I was watching TV with the kids on Sunday when there was a knock on the door. I opened it and saw two old high school buddies, April and Mandy, who had graduated with me and Trina. They were gathering information for our next reunion. They were writing down as many facts as they could so they could print a book and hand it out to all of our former classmates. They got our address from Melissa. I'd forgotten she'd given it to me. I invited the women into the house and gave them all tea. We did all the preliminary preparations.